Okay, so hello everybody. Welcome to the 2023 uh, Theater Management and Producing MFA online info session, webinar, Q&A. We're happy to have you with us. And for those of you who are joining at any point over the next 12 months, welcome to you as well. We're going to be talking to you a little bit about the MFA concentration in theater management and producing at Columbia University. And at the end, I'm hoping that we'll have some time for any questions. So my name is Stephen Chailkelson, and I'm a professor of professional practice here in the School of the Arts at Columbia University, and I'm the director of the Theater Management and Producing concentration. Wearing my other hat, I have a production and general management company, and that's Snug Harbor Productions. I produce and general manage shows on Broadway, off Broadway, around the country, around the world. I do consulting for not-for-profit theater companies. I've worked on various festivals. And I'm very, very happy to be here today to speak with you all about the program. And I'm joined by Victoria Bailey.
Hi there, I'm Victoria or Tori Bailey. I am my formal title in terms of Columbia is I'm an adjunct professor and advisor to the Theater Management and Producing concentration. I've had the pleasure this term of being the covering for Stephen as the interim concentration director while Stephen's been on sabbatical. And I am, when I'm not at Columbia, I work at a variety of projects as a consultant, as a facilitator for retreats, as an educator. I finished up at Theater Development Fund after I stepped down in June after 20 plus years there. Prior to that, I was a producer and general manager in the not-for-profit sector here in New York City, and I'm delighted to be here to talk with all of you. Welcome.
And we are also joined by Niquette Johnson from the admissions office and here in the School of the Arts, and she's going to be available for any questions that come up at the end. So thank you for being with us, Niquette.
No problem.
So we're going to start by orienting you to the world of Columbia University. And for starters, that is Columbia University School of the Arts is a school within the umbrella of Columbia University. So in the same way that there is a school of law and a business school and a medical school and a school of journalism, there is also a school of the arts. And we are based in Dodge Hall. I'm actually speaking to you now from my office on the 6th floor of Dodge Hall. And that is Dodge Hall that you see in that photo. The School of the Arts includes 4 separate divisions: film, theater, writing, and visual arts. And you might say, well, what about music? Well, there is a separate School of Music at Columbia. So while the School of Music actually is in this same building with us, the School of Music is not part of the School of the Arts. So we have Columbia University with the School of the Arts and 4 different divisions. And then if we zoom into the theater division or the theater program in the School of the Arts, we have 6 different concentrations. We have acting, directing, dramaturgy, playwriting, stage management, and theater management and producing. And then as an offshoot of our theater management and producing program, and as a collaboration with Columbia Law School, we also offer a joint JD MFA program where you can basically get the 2 degrees in less time and for less money than if you were to get them separately. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the JD MFA later in this session. First thing we usually talk about when we're talking to prospective applicants is why an MFA? Do you need an MFA? And Tori, you feel free to weigh in as well, but I think it's a really personal decision, and it depends upon each individual, how you learn best and what you think is going to be for you the best way to make your way in the business.
Yeah, there isn't any one way to come into this business and build a career here. So these are, Stephen, we'll talk through the things that you gain from a program, an MFA program. Some of these things you would gain if you don't do an MFA program, but the fact that you're here means that you're at least considering it. And I think if you are considering it, and even if you're not sure, we'd encourage you to consider it deeply and to reach out to us and speak with us. We're more than happy to talk about, your own particular situation and whether or not a program like this makes sense. So it's a very personal decision.
And we've put up here on this slide some of the features, some of the reasons why you might consider an MFA. I kind of like to boil these all down to three key elements that I think should be part of any graduate degree program, certainly a professional graduate degree program, which is curriculum, collaboration, and contacts.
Right.
And so there's the curriculum, right? That what you're going to learn, and can you, is what the program's offering in terms of curriculum, feeding you information and providing a foundation and the know-how that's more and at a faster pace and in greater depth than what you would get simply working in a company and working your way up in the business. In terms of collaboration, it's everybody that you're working with in the program, fellow students, staff, faculty, guests.
And by everyone there, we mean not only people in the theater management and producing cohort, but in the overall School of the Arts. So in the overall theater concentration. So it's directors, it's stage managers, playwrights, dramaturgs, it's the whole group. So it's a larger universe than just the universe of the management and producing students.
Correct. What is that community that you're collaborating with? And then finally, contacts, which is how through the resources of the program, with alumni, with faculty, with guests, through internships, etc., how does that help you build your network and prepare you for a career and really give you a major head start on a career? And so I think with any program that you're evaluating, any graduate program you're evaluating, I think those are three key elements to think about.
Mm-hmm.
A quick summary of our program. We admit about 8 to 10 students per year. We actually have a class from a few years ago, or fairly recently, which had 11 students. But generally speaking, we admit 8 to 10 students per year. So we keep it relatively small, and that really gives us the ability to personalize the program. There are arts administration programs out in the world that where the class size goes up to 30, 40, or even 50. Our goal has always been to keep the program small and personalized. It's a 3-year program, which means 2 years of classes and 1 thesis year. Classes, the 2 years of classes, we consider those 4 full-time semesters. Each semester is 14 weeks, and full-time means roughly 15 hours of classes, though that can vary from semester to semester.
And 15 hours really breaks down to generally most students are taking 4 to 5 classes a term, or in some instances there'll be a kind of half-term course. So maybe you're taking 5 courses, but actually you're taking 6 because one of them is 7 weeks and 2 7-week courses. We make that possible as well. But basically you're looking at 4 to 5 classes for each of 4 semesters.
And we program those classes so that you have the ability, or students have the ability to do internships, to work part-time, to work on their own projects, to be able to have the time to study, to be able to have the time to see as much theater as possible. So that's really the layout of the first 2 years, with the summer or the semesters running from September through December, January through early May, and then the summer being off from mid-May through the end of August.
Although a lot of people, the summer's off, but often people will decide to do an internship over the summer because there are some internships that are much better suited for being able to do them in the summer so that you have more time available for the internship.
And then the third year, which is the thesis year, most students are working full-time in their thesis year, while they're also doing research and writing of their thesis. So the thesis process usually takes about 12 months to complete through the research and a series of drafts. And we'll talk a little more about that later. So the first 2 years, 4 semesters, 60 credits, approximately 15 credits per semester, which we program, and then there are additional electives that are available as well. We have, as part of the requirements of being in the program, there is the requirement of producing and or managing multiple projects being that are developed by or directors, playwrights, and actors. So there are, while they're the producers and managers going through the program, we have actors and directors and playwrights also going through a 3-year program, and their work ramps up as they move through the program with thesis productions in their 3rd year that take place on our main stage, and in the 1st and 2nd years, smaller scale productions that take place in our smaller black box spaces. And producing and management students can be involved in productions at all those stages. In addition, there is one crew assignment, which is generally fulfilled by serving as the company manager of the show, with the primary responsibility being when you get closer to performances, dealing with box office, dealing with the basic needs of the actors and creative team. We have the requirement of 3 internships, and we'll talk more about internships in a little while, but I just want to emphasize that when we use the word internships, and it's in quotations because we consider it a term of art, right? An internship, to fulfill an internship requirement doesn't mean you have to take a position that is labeled an internship.
Right.
It can be a full-time job, part-time job, fellowship, observership, formal internship.
Part of what we're able to do, part of why we keep the program so small, is that it allows us to really sit down with students and craft what would be a meaningful quote unquote internship. So for instance, I have one of the students this year was feeling that, you know, they really wanted to be able to, in essence, develop a kind of mentorship network, and we're building an internship around that. It was someone who wanted to kind of identify and figure out people who she wanted to learn from as producers. So that really an internship is how we craft a work professional development experience for you.
We hope that you go to see a lot of theater while you're in the program. Broadway, off-Broadway, off-Broadway, regional theater. And in order to help students do that, we get a lot of free tickets to shows that are donated by the theater companies, by producers and general managers. And there's usually there is always a theater ticket coordinator, and that person is actually usually a 2nd-year producing student. And it's one of several jobs that producing students can do on campus and get paid for. And then, as we mentioned before, there is the thesis requirement. More about that shortly. Our faculty is a faculty of working professionals. Everyone who teaches is also working in some area of the industry, whether as a producer, a theater manager, a managing director, general manager, working in some support area like advertising or press or human resources, and accounting, law offices, etc. So everybody who is, or that we think that's a real advantage to be taught by people who are actually doing the work, and they feel it's an advantage because for them in their practice to be able to meet with students, talk with students, learn from students, see how students are thinking. And so I think the students feed the faculty and the faculty feed the students.
And as a result of that, the fact that, the faculty are as committed to as they are to teaching and as interested and engaged with our students, these folks really become, they become resources for you, right? And so students will figure out over the course of the 2 years, it is always the case that some one of these people is doing something that you may be interested in pursuing as you move forward, and they are exceedingly available to you and are there to be resources and to guide you.
Yeah, these are not people who show up for 2 hours a week and then say bye-bye.
And say bye.
They are so committed to mentorship and advising, and because it's the reason they're doing this to begin with. They're sort of paying forward what they got earlier in their careers.
And they're all over the city.
Yes, which is a big feature of the program that we'll talk about in a little while.
We'll get to that later. Yep.
Yeah. Our students come from a wide range of backgrounds and educational experiences and life experiences, coming from all across the United States. Columbia University also has one of the largest international student populations. 35% of the School of the Arts student body is international, and a current snapshot of theater management and producing students, 25% of our current first, second, and third year students
I know, Melissa,
are international.
you said you were coming in from Europe in the chat. It makes total sense. We have a wide-ranging international body of students during the pandemic when we were forced to teach on Zoom. How many time zones were we accommodating, Stephen, when we were teaching classes? We had to come up with times to teach that worked for midnight to midnight on opposite sides of the world. So it is a very international body.
Yeah, back during COVID, there was rarely a class when someone wasn't online in the middle of the night.
Yep.
And that diversity extends to undergraduate majors, where you went to school, whether you've been out in the working world or not, age range. Really, we're talking about all different areas where you can have sort of a diverse group, a diverse cohort.
Yeah, when we put a class together, this year is not atypical. We will often have, people who've only been out of undergraduate a couple of years and people who've been out working in other careers or fields for 10 or 15 years. And it makes for very rich conversations within the classroom. So it's regionally diverse. It's nationally and internationally diverse. It's diverse in terms of experience. It's diverse in terms of race and ethnicity, gender, all those things. We really try and put together a very cohesive yet diverse cohort for each year.
Because we believe that everyone who is part of the cohort has something that they can teach and something that they bring to the table that can benefit the rest of the group. So we're here in New York City, and we'll talk shortly about how the program reaches out into the city in a really big way. But in terms of Columbia facilities on campus, we're not, although I started out by showing Dodge Hall. Dodge Hall is where the theater office is. We have a couple of classrooms in Dodge Hall. Students have their mailboxes in Dodge Hall, but our footprint goes across the Columbia campus, both the Morningside campus and the Manhattanville campus. So use my pointer here. We have, so Dodge is right over here. We have 2 black box theaters as well as some other spaces in Shapiro Hall, which is on 115th Street. The theater management and producing students take class at the law school. Theater management and producing students often also take electives in the arts administration program at Teachers College. We have some rehearsals that take place at Riverside Church. That's where some of our rehearsal facilities and classroom facilities are located. And then we have the Manhattanville campus, which is Columbia's newest campus and is actually in process of construction. They've recently completed the first phase of construction, which included a meeting center, a science center, the Lenfest Center for the Arts, which is all School of the Arts, two different business school buildings. So, and then in addition to Lenfest, which is really our forward.
Stephen, you froze up for a moment, at least for me, Stephen.
Oh, sorry.
You were saying in addition to Lenfest.
Yes. For the School of the Arts. We then also have a footprint in the Nash building, where we have classrooms and studio space. So our footprint goes from about 115th Street and Broadway up to 133rd Street and Broadway. And that's the Columbia campus. And here's a quick slide which shows the Lenfest Center of the Arts, where we have a flexible space theater that's used for all our third-year thesis productions. There's also a film screening room, an art gallery, a multi. So that's our pretty new Lenfest Center for the Arts. But really and truly, New York City is your classroom.
Your entire classroom. You'll spend a lot of time on the train going from Columbia to Midtown.
Yes, really, our feeling is part of our philosophy of this program is that we don't shut you up for 2 or 3 years and then turn you building your reputation and organically connecting from the first day in the program. And so while there are individual classes that take place up on Columbia, and you're working on projects that are being produced up at Columbia, you're also on a regular basis every single week, not necessarily every day, but certainly multiple times a week, you're having class in boardrooms and meeting spaces, in theaters and other offices in the Times Square neighborhood, down in the East Village, right, pretty much all over the city. And there are formal classes that take place every single week in these locations. And then there are a lot of field trips as well, where you do site visits.
And what that does, in addition to just, it's more interesting, you're seeing your professors in their work environment, because that's part of what, that's why you're meeting Midtown. It's not that we randomly pick conference rooms. You're meeting with your professors in their workplace. It gives you an opportunity to understand what different workplaces feel like, what different environments are like. And, a large part of why you go to graduate school in the kind of a more amorphous, why get an MFA, is it's an opportunity, I like to say, to be trying on a variety of hats and saying, how do I want to work? Who are the artists I want to work with? What work am I responding to on campus? What work am I responding to that I see? What's the kind of office I want to be in? What kind of producer do I want to be? What kind of manager do I want to be? And you get a much better sense of people when you're in the space with them, where they work, than you do when they're sitting in a classroom 50 blocks away from Midtown Manhattan.
And we don't want you to be stuck in a classroom for 2 years and then suddenly be intimidated walking into somebody's office. We want you to feel
I mean, as
comfortable in
someone
those
who teaches
offices.
on campus because I choose to, and because at the moment, if I were to teach not on campus, you'd have to come to Brooklyn, and that would be a bit, right? It's not that it's bad if it's on campus, but we want you to have the mix of experiences.
I think if we had to say anything about the program, it's about balancing in many, many different ways. And this is one of the balances that we try to strike. Speaking of balance, we believe in an individualized and a balanced curriculum. So when we say an individualized program, well, on the one hand, there are certain required courses and everyone has to take them. But when we get on, which artists you work on, what you do for a quote unquote internship, like that's what you write your thesis on. Those are ways that we can really tailor the program to an individual's interests as they develop, as they move through the program.
Because what you're interested in will in all likelihood change over the course of the 2 years that you're there. And so there's a wide enough variety that when you go, oh, I actually want to explore that more, that it's there for you.
And so there are programs in this country that are excellent theater management programs that are focused almost exclusively on the not-for-profit theater sector and regional theater sector. That's great. That's not us. We believe in a balance between commercial and not-for-profit, and the intersection of the two, and the movement back and forth between the two. We believe in a balance of sort of the management and administration component of leadership and the producing and entrepreneurial side of leadership. We spend a lot of time both building skills, weighted more toward the first year, and tackling industry issues, weighted a little more in the second year. We think it's important that when you're studying the way the industry works, you look at past, present, and future. And that includes how we got where we are now, what are best practices currently in the industry, and looking at other industries to see what sort of best practices we can steal from other industries, and looking ahead and figuring out, okay, well, here are all the things that are wrong. Let's not just complain about them. Let's figure out how we can fix things.
Yep. Jim, why don't you finish up and then I'll add a little.
Oh, yeah. And then also something that we really started integrating a few years ago was, I think we did the United States really well. And a few years ago, we started integrating a lot more international work as well, looking at countries really all around the world, but within a special focus on the UK. And we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly.
And I would say that, the thing that's important when you look at this list is it's presented as kind of A and B. And one of the things, though, that I think we really believe is that it isn't really A and B. It's not A and B, it's A and B, right? That the world in which we're now working, there is enormous interplay between the commercial sector and the nonprofit sector. You need to be entrepreneurial in order to be a good administrator, but you also, management is producing. These things go together. And I think the other thing that's really important right now to be thinking about as you consider going to school is, we are in a period of enormous change in the theater, both in the not-for-profit sector and also in the commercial sector. And I think, the easy thing to say is that these are changes that are coming out of the pandemic, out of COVID. I don't actually think that's true. I think these are changes that were already at work, that were accelerated or exacerbated by COVID. and the pandemic and the way what happened when people weren't able to go to live performance for a year. But this is a moment of enormous change in the field, and it is therefore an incredibly exciting time, I think, to be thinking about how would I like to be a theater maker moving forward. But it's also a time where you therefore need to really understand and hone in on how we got to where we are and what are the skills that we need in order to think about how best to produce going forward.
So we take these, what I would call principles of our of the education that we deliver, and then apply them to these different areas of study. And these are probably the major areas that we focus on over the 2 years of full-time study. Accounting and finance, budgeting, contracts, creative development, history and theory, international production, human resources and labor relations, management and administration, and marketing and audience development.
And Stephen froze up for a minute, but I don't know for everybody, but between creative and you can read between creative development and history and theory is equity, diversity, inclusion, and fundraising and development. But this is the mix of classes that the primary mix of classes that we offer. And then, of course, there are electives beyond that, individual ones that people may find that they want to take.
The individual courses, this is how they're broken up between first year and second year. First year is a lot more required courses. Second year, there's more freedom in terms of selecting individual courses and or opting out of individual courses and replacing them with electives. I realize it's a long list, and we're not going to read the list. We'll just leave it up on the screen here while I continue to talk for a minute. Some of them from their titles are pretty obvious in terms of the type of material they cover. Other titles don't necessarily tell you exactly what they are, but this list is meant to give you just a sense of how the curriculum is divided up over the first and second year. The first year tends to be more foundational, more skills-based.
Yeah, we're really trying to get everybody to an equal playing field in the first year. In terms of understanding, some people come in with a background in marketing from something else. Some people come in with a background in finance, but this is, everyone gets an exposure to a wide variety of skills. And it's an opportunity to A, say, well, this is something I know I want to do, or B, say, this is something I know I don't want to do. But one of the things that's important is you may not want to do it, but when you're a producer, you're going to be hiring someone to do that for you or with you, and you need to understand what that job entails and what that job is. And so the first year really is a 360-degree, if you will, look at the various skills and knowledge base you need in both the commercial and nonprofit sector. And then in the second year, it's a combination of more advanced skills-based work, something like the theater practice, ticketing, pricing, and inventory control, and really broad-based discussion conversations and classes.
And then what we do every year is we look at this curriculum and we brainstorm things that potentially should be added to the curriculum. So it's quite possible that by next year or the following year, there will be some changes in this overall curriculum. Just in the past 3 years, we've added the digital producing course, we've added our human resources course, and what we've added for this year is actually has come out of discussion with the concentration heads and faculty of all the other theater concentrations. One thing that both the faculty and the students wanted to focus on more were opportunities for the intersection of students from all the different concentrations and cohorts. So we've created the first year collaboration intensive, which is taking place as a 1-week workshop period in the first week of the spring semester. And the second is the collaboration studio, which is something that all the second years are working on together over the course of the spring semester. And this is basically opportunities to create work together.
Yep.
So if you want to be siloed, this probably isn't the right place. There is opportunity there are lots of courses that are just theater management and producing students, just the cohort, just those 8 to 10 students, but it's not just that, right? It's as much as we can possibly get in there as far as interacting with directors and actors and playwrights, et cetera, because that's what happens when you get out into the world.
You get out into the world, exactly.
In terms of electives and this sort of ongoing conversation of how do we tailor the program to each individual and their particular interests. So first, we start with all the other concentrations in the theater program. And there are classes in playwriting and dramaturgy and the directing program and the stage management program that are available as electives from semester to semester.
Very popular one that many students take first term, first year is a course called the Visiting Artist Program, where which Anne curates, is that right?
Anne Bogart, yeah.
Anne Bogart, who the director curates, and it gives, but many of the management and producing students take it, and basically you are meeting and hearing from different artists throughout the course of the term, and it's an incredible opportunity. For instance, for students who really want to understand the large variety of artistic impulses that work in New York City, that's the kind of course that you could take, and then and you're taking that with students from a bunch of different concentrations within the program. It's just one example.
Yeah. There are courses that are available depending upon the semester from the film program. And you say, well, but that's film, that's not theater. And but it's really interesting. The Columbia Film Program is very much focused on independent film. And there's so much interesting overlap and things that we in the theater industry, especially commercial theater, can learn from the production and distribution of independent film and vice versa. So those are interesting courses. The Arts Administration program at Teachers College, which is not-for-profit focused and covers all different areas of performing and visual arts, recently revamped its program, reimagined its program. So we're starting to learn, there are a whole bunch of new electives that our students are starting to take, and we're starting to get a better sense of those. Each semester, there are a number of Columbia Business School courses that are available for cross-registration. Some of them don't really apply to someone who wants to work in theater, but surprisingly, every semester, several of them do. And so our students have taken a wide variety of courses over the years at the business school. All the producing students take at least one course at the law school, which is a seminar in law and theater, which I teach. And the students in that course are half producing students, half law students. And then there are individual courses that are offered at the law school that our students may elect to take as well. And then final, sorry, go ahead.
I just was going to say that I think, and this applies when we get to other areas of the university, all of the students in the program, Stephen and I advise all of you, right? So in any given year, we really split the class in half, and I have half of them, Stephen has the other half, which doesn't mean you can always talk to anyone you want to, but we help you curate what you should be taking, right? Because it can look a little bit overwhelming. And so when it comes to electives, we really meet with our advisees and talk about a combination of what is it that you feel you really don't understand or know and want to know. What is it that's exciting to you? What are the things that you're thinking about? Oh, you feel like you have enough of a course load, maybe you want to audit a course, right? But we work with you to figure out what makes the most sense for you as a learner.
Do you want to talk about other areas of the university?
Well, I think what's important is that to understand is that, you are at Columbia. And so over the course of the years, I've had advisees I had an advisee once who took in the anthropology course. People take courses in other cultures. One of the things that's interesting for some students is kind of management theory that sometimes you don't find at the business school, but you find elsewhere. I think we've added and incorporated, as you made a couple of slides back, digital storytelling, but there's more and more kind of overlap with respect to thinking about what are other forms of storytelling and other media. Those are the ones that instantly come to mind. Stephen, I don't know if there's anything else you're thinking of that I'm forgetting.
We've had people take language courses as well. We had one person who was really interested in urban planning and took those courses.
We've got a student now who's very interested in cultural exchange, and she's in the first year, but I have a feeling that will form part of it. We may be looking for some international policy, cultural policy courses to help her develop what she wants. So Columbia is a huge university, and there are ways. We're also, Stephen and I both believe in, if it says it's not, a course is closed and only open to students in division, what you do is you just go talk to the professor and we have a conversation about why it's important to you to take the class. And that's usually a pretty persuasive conversation.
And I'm going to take one moment to just say something about this photo. As you have seen, I've interspersed a lot of student photos in the deck here. This particular one in the second year, first semester, fall semester of the second year, one of the courses that we offer is Advanced Seminar in Theater Management, which is really a course about Broadway theater owners and the Shubert Organization. And it's taught by two vice presidents of the Shubert Organization. You meet with people from all different areas of the Shubert Organization. For those who don't know, the Shubert Organization owns and operates 17 Broadway theaters, 6 off-Broadway theaters, runs the telecharge ticketing system, ticketing platform, etc. So a major player in the theater in America. And one of those sessions always takes place at the Shubert Archive, which has resources that date back to the turn of the 20th century. And the obligatory photo on that day at the Shubert Archive is always posing with a Tony Award.
Right.
So that's what's.
And this was in the fall of 21, hence all the masks.
Yes. So a little bit about our Stage 1 exchange. We have developed a program with Stage 1. Stage 1 is an offshoot of the Society of London Theatre, which is a trade association of theaters and producers and general managers in London. Their Stage 1 program is not an academic program, but it is a program that is a kind of continuing education for theater producers and training for theater producers in a variety of different subjects. So not degree granting, but still somewhat academically oriented. They also provide some support for projects, seed money for projects, etc. So something that there's no equivalent to Stage 1 in America. But the great thing is, because they do all this teaching and are teaching younger up and coming British producers, and because we're doing that teaching here in America, we got together and collaborated and created an exchange program. And every year we have about 10 to 12 of their Stage 1 producers come to New York City for a week. We host them here. Our faculty gives a series of lectures on how theater is made in America and the differences between producing in New York and in London, or in the US versus the UK. Then, usually in the spring semester, our Columbia students, the second year students, go to London for a week. We cover the cost of your airfare, your housing, airport transfers, and stage one provides a week of programming, touring, theater going, etc. And the goal is each group learns about producing in the other country, and even more so that we build relationships. So in terms of talking about sort of your network and your contacts, that it's not just about American theater makers, but also British theater makers as well.
And over the course of the week, I can't speak for the stage one participants because we don't go back to London with them, but for our students, as this program has grown, it really informs one of this year's third year students. The inspiration for her thesis really started with a seminar that we had in London last spring about theater owners in London and how theaters get booked and what the decision-making process is. So it's not only an opportunity, because there's when you work in the theater, in particular in New York, there's a very close relationship between the folks who make theater in London and the folks who make theater in New York, but there are also significant differences about how that work gets made, how the economics work. But the opportunity to understand what each other's doing and figure out how you can learn from that experience is a very powerful one. And it's fun.
It is so much fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Internships. So this is just a list of a selection of companies where our students have recently interned. And the whole thing about our internships, or part of what I think is great about our internships, is that because of all the faculty, because of the alumni who are out in the world, it is there's a wide range of opportunities that are available. So we're not talking about programming, saying, okay, first year student, these are the 3 places that you are going to intern over the course of your time at Columbia. And here's the semester you're going to intern there. Here's the number of weeks you're going to do, and here's the number of hours you're going to do. This is an organic process that happens with your advisor and with our third sort of specialized internship advisor, Christina Selby, who is both an alum and a vice president at the Nederlander organization. And we basically, the 3 of us, work with the students to help you get where you want to go, or have the types of experiences that you want to have, whether that's an experience that's really geared toward learning a particular area, sampling a particular area. It may also be a way to set yourself up for a full-time job down the line. So there are both educational as well as sort of strategic long-term professional goals that can be achieved through the internship program.
And if you look at this list, I mean, you certainly won't know who all these companies are, but what it is it represents a mix of commercial general managers and producers, some of the leading not-for-profit subsidized theaters in the city, and folks who, for lack of a better term, I would call service providers, only it's more than that. But folks who are doing marketing, folks who are doing ticketing, folks who are thinking about branding and sponsorship, and also there's folks here who are doing touring. So there's a wide range of places that our students have gone, and they have, I will say, they go there and are successful. So organizations are very keen to have our students as interns.
And because we don't simply tell you where you're going and place you there, this is a process of applying, writing cover letters, interviewing, and that's building skills as well that can serve you in your career. Some people need practice interviewing, so we'll do some mock interviews. People may want, their advisor to take a look at a cover letter. And little by little, you sort of build those interviewing and job application skills.
Right.
We've talked about collaboration. I want to say a few more words about that. So in addition to sort of those new first and second year courses, the collaboration intensive and the collaboration studio, producing students also get involved in classroom projects with directors, playwrights, dramaturgs, and actors, first and second year productions in our black box theaters, third year main stage productions and festivals. Another really interesting way to collaborate with students, not just in the theater program, but throughout the School of the Arts, is the Digital Storytelling Lab, which has become really, really popular with the theater students. This is different from the digital producing course. This is actually a way to get your hands dirty and work with digital media and with students from visual arts and film and writing students and theater students. It's a really, really interesting series of courses that they offer. And something that isn't on this list is just simply taking courses with other students. Tori's course, maybe you want to say a few words about reimagining American theater.
I teach a course in the second year with Christian Parker, who runs the dramaturgy program that has the modest title that we call Reimagining the American Theater, where we're really asking students over the course of the term. We look at what the opportunities are right now to change structures that have been existent for a long time in the nonprofit theater. We talk about theater as it relates to community and how important that community connection is for the health and viability of an organization. And that's a class that is second year dramaturgs and producers working together. Also, this year there are a couple of directors in it and a playwright. So we encourage and embrace that collaboration. And then out of the class come a variety of there's other work that people do kind of one-on-one outside. I'm aware of collaborations that have happened. There's also, of course, the development fundraising course that we offer. The dramaturgs often take that course. But there are ways to meet other people, which then lead to activities with other extracurricular productions. If people have relationships with artists who are making work not necessarily under the Columbia umbrella, and then they will work and support those.
And we've had so many of these collaborations that start at Columbia and then extend on for years and years.
Years and years to come.
So the thesis, you write your thesis in your third year. Actually, in the spring semester of your second year, you get deep into a brainstorming process, and with the goal being that by the time you are done with classes at the end of the second year, you have a topic, you have an argument, and you have an outline, and then you spend the third year researching and writing. The thesis is a position paper, so it's not simply a research paper where you share what you've learned, but in our effort to make change in the industry, to reimagine the industry and look toward a better future, the goal, the idea of the thesis is to make an argument for something that needs to change, or to debunk conventional wisdom, or a number of other things they might want to argue. There's usually, because it's about thinking forward, because it's about forward thinking, there's usually a big interview component, which is, again, an opportunity to engage with professionals in the industry and to make contacts.
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity, because by now with the thesis, I like to say it's either an opportunity to really drill down and develop an argument and a strategy for something you want to do, or that you know you want to do, or for something that you think would make a big difference in the business. And so you were out there talking to people about, interviewing people about things you're passionate about, which then allows you to meet with people and make connections with people where your interests are in alignment, and which may very well lead ultimately to employment.
And just last week, I found out that one of our third-year students was offered a job by one of the people she interviewed, or she interviewed this person a couple of times for her thesis, and she's now been offered a job.
Right.
In the exact area that she was excited about and wanted to work in.
So this is, people get intimidated by the idea of the thesis. The thesis is actually a really exciting opportunity for you, and really a kind of capstone, if you will, to the time that you have spent up until then. And as I think you probably are beginning to sense, again, we very much work with you and advise you. You have a lot of time to develop what you're going to write your thesis about, to develop what it should look like, to look at what an outline is. You don't worry about it your first year. At least this is how I handle it. Your first year, you're learning. Second year, first term, second year, you begin to think about what you might be interested in, maybe thinking about writing a thesis about. And by the end of second term, second year, through the class that Stephen teaches, you will be ready to go in terms of writing.
And each student has a thesis supervisor, a faculty advisor, as well as usually also an outside advisor with some specialization in the area that they're researching.
Yep.
So a few words about our JD MFA program. So it's an MFA in theater management and producing, and a JD, which is a regular law degree. It can't be combined with any other MFA concentration. It only works with theater management and producing. And essentially, when it works really, really well, you can basically get what would otherwise take 6 years in 4 years.
Right.
So it can be, on the one hand, a lot of work. On the other hand, a huge savings of time and money. If you're looking at 4 years, it's basically a total of 8 semesters over 4 years, 5 of which, or 2.5 of those years, are spent at Columbia Law School. 3 of those semesters are spent at School of the Arts. And then you might say, I just said that, and you might be thinking to yourself, oh, but if I'm only in School of the Arts for 3 semesters, how do I take, I'm going to be missing a whole bunch of courses. And the answer to that is, it isn't, even though you are based in one school or based in the other school for 5 semesters and 3 semesters, it isn't quite as rigid as that in terms of the courses that you actually register for. So you can be registered at the law school, taking primarily law courses, but also taking courses in theater.
Yeah, we have one JD MFA this year who's just finished his 3rd semester in the School of the Arts, but he will be taking courses. Well, next semester will technically be a law school semester. He will be taking at least one other course in the School of the Arts, and he's going to London as part of his spring term.
Yeah. And most students wind up writing their thesis while they're in the 4th year. So usually in the 4th year, you're finishing up, you're doing your final year at the law school, and most students write their thesis in that 4th year, though it's not 100% required, and you certainly can actually do a 5th year where you're basically just working and writing your thesis. You don't necessarily have to do it while you're also in the midst of classes. The way you get into the JD MFA program is by applying separately to each school. And then if you are accepted by each school, you can raise your hand and say, I elect to do these degrees jointly. But they're 2 completely separate applications, 2 completely separate admissions offices, separate consideration process.
Which means that if you want to do the program, we've had students who got into both and decided to do the program. We've had students who got into one or the other of the schools and not the other one. And then they either have to decide, well, I'm going to go ahead and go to the law school, or I'm going to go ahead and get my MFA and not do the combined program, or they were only interested in it for the combined program. But you really do have to apply to both of them.
Yeah, but as Tori said, that application to the other program can happen when you are early in your first year. So one of our current JD MFA students applied to the law school in the fall semester of his first year here in the School of the Arts.
Right.
And then was admitted to the law school and did his second year in the law school.
Right.
We have a number of partnerships. I've spoken about the Stage 1 partnership. We have a partnership with the Black Theater Coalition, as well as Disney Theatrical Group, and we developed for them a series of weekly seminars on the business of theater. We haven't offered them this past year, but I was actually just emailing with BTC about restarting that series in the spring. In partnership with Columbia Law School and the Broadway Advocacy Coalition, our students can, as an elective, I think I'm losing.
You're losing
Can
what?
you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, my headphones died. So we have, our students have the option of taking an elective entitled Theater of Change, and that's a course that can be taken at the law school. We talked about Stage 1 already, and then we have two separate producing fellowships, the Prince Fellowship and the Front Row Productions Fellowship, and one or two or three producing fellows are selected each year. They come and take courses alongside of the MFA students, and their time here in the program is a combination of taking courses and working on developing a particular project. So it is the fellowship is very much project-based. And what's interesting is that this year, two of those fellows and two of the projects that they developed here at Columbia are going to be on Broadway. How to Dance in Ohio, which is currently in previews, and SUFS, which opens in the spring.
It's just another place where there's kind of some cross collaboration and you're making relationships that will extend beyond your time at Columbia.
And this is just an illustration of the Prince Fellowship, the mentors who are involved with the Prince Fellowship, some of whom are also faculty members for the MFA program. Our current fellows, Max Beer and Amy Marie Haven, and a selection of the shows that our mentors have produced. And so in addition to the Prince Fellowship, we have the Front Row Productions Fellowship, which we founded with Stephen Bird and Aaliyah Jones-Harvey. We had fellows from that program for the past 2 years. We don't have one this year. So at the moment, we have 2 producing fellows who are sitting in classes with the MFA students. Financial aid. So I think the first thing I'll say is to go back to the way the program is structured. Years 1 and 2 are full-time in classes. Year 3 which is the thesis year, we also refer to as research arts. If you go to the website, you'll probably see the term research arts on there. Tuition is greatly reduced. Because you're not a full-time student, tuition is greatly reduced in that 3rd year. So our financial aid focuses on support for years 1 and 2. There's a combination of need-based and merit-based aid.
which generally ranges from $10,000 to $40,000 per year. We also have our new Whitman Fellowship, which provides for one incoming student each year coverage for full tuition for years 1 and 2 in the program. There's also additional opportunities for students to work in student service positions, which are pretty well paid part-time jobs. And I mentioned one of them already, which is the ticket fellow, who deals with organizing all those ticket donations, the requesting tickets, dealing with the distribution of those complimentary tickets. But there are a lot of other student service positions as well, both working on the production side, supporting the various productions, office work, assisting faculty members, and basically supporting the program and or the School of the Arts in a variety of ways, some of which can actually be really useful in terms of either contacts or as a great credit for your resume. And then in addition to that, we have what we call the Schubert Internship Stipend. So the Schubert Foundation has been a supporter of the theater program since its inception here at the School of the Arts. And they provide stipends to help subsidize 2 internships. It doesn't matter when you do those internships, in your first year, your second year, or your third year, as long as you've done your 2 qualifying internships, the funding gets paid to you in your third year. So whether that's you've done a paid internship or an unpaid internship, as long as it qualifies in various ways and fulfills the requirements of the Schubert internship, you then get that funding in your third year, which is a great way to offset a large portion of that research arts tuition.
And so what we're saying is we're well aware of the fact that the program is expensive. And what we're saying is that there are a variety of ways that we can help mitigate the expense of the program. And if you are interested in applying, we urge you to apply and talk with us about what the options are rather than to decide this door is closed to you. And that's Stephen and I are here for that. The admissions office is here for that. Those are conversations that we can have. And so there are resources. And so we really urge you, if you feel that this is the place that you want to be, you should apply to this. You should have conversations with us. You should apply to this program. And then we figure it out.
And I'll add that when you're going through the admissions process, our admissions committee does not get any information.
None.
About your need. So we admit students into the program without any idea what the financial need is. Then once you are admitted and you're offered a financial package, we do our best to try to find a way to make it work. Because by admitting you into the program, we've already made a commitment to you.
Right. We've already said we want you and we want to make it happen.
You to be here at Columbia if we've admitted you. And so we try to figure out how to make that work financially. Oh, Tori, what kind of students are we looking for?
This is a question everybody often asks us, so we'll try and anticipate. There isn't any one way, there isn't any one answer to this question. I think what we're looking for is we are looking for people who are passionate about the theater and want to produce and make theater and are interested in doing it in ways that are forward looking, right? That are really interested in doing it in a way that says, you know, it's hard to, that isn't siloed. We're looking for people who are interested in working in all sorts of areas in the field. We're looking for people who are inquisitive, who are compassionate, who are inclusive and respect the folks with whom they do work. What we really do when we put a class together is it's as close to casting a play as Stephen and I, as non-artistic directors, can come. And the admissions committee, we're saying what not only who's right for this program, who's going to learn from this program, but also how do we put together a group of 8 to 10 people who will hold each other up. We make no preconceptions about where you're going to end up. It's not like we say, well, we're accepting 10 students, 5 of them better want to work in commercial, 5 in nonprofit. We fully expect many of you to change your minds over the course of the time you're here. That's why you're here. So that, I think, we are looking for a student who has already had enough experience. And this doesn't have to be work experience. This can be, in some instances, experience as an undergraduate or experience in work that you've done. This is a program for people who have decided they want to work in the theater. This is not a program for people who think they might want to work in the theater, because this is a very expensive, it would be a really expensive way to figure out, do I want to do the theater? But also we want someone. So if you're not sure you want to work in the theater, again, have a conversation with us. We're available to you about whether or not you should apply. But this is designed for folks who have decided, no, this is where I want to spend my time. This is what I want to do. And I want to make sure I can do it as well as I can. What did I leave out, Stephen?
I think, and with everything you said is 100% correct. And within sort of that desire, that hunger to work in the theater, we want someone who's also really hungry to learn and explore and take the time to think, because the students who are coming through this program are the ones who are going to change the industry and perpetuate the industry and make it better in the future. And so this is not about coming in and learning how to be a company manager and go out and company manage.
No,
go and work as an assistant company manager, learn how to company manage, and then do that for the rest of your career.
If you know exactly what you want to do, then you should probably go do that. If you know that you want to work in the theater and you were called to be a producer, to be a manager, but you haven't figured out how best to do that, and you don't feel that you have everything you need yet to, that's what this program is for. That's who this program is for.
We do not require the GRE or any other standardized test. One question we get a lot is about the creative materials. People say, well, it's so open-ended, it's so broad, I don't really understand what you're looking for. Well, it is intended to be very broad and very open-ended, because what we're really looking to do with your application is learn who you are. And
learn who you are, learn who you are, learn what your creative spirit is, because producers and managers are creative. We want to learn and learn how you think about making work and how you think about being a creator.
So for the play analysis, we're not telling you what play or musical to analyze, and we're not telling you what aspect of it you should analyze. We want to see what you come up with. And for the portfolio, which could be a marketing, advertising type of portfolio, it could be more of a producing, budgeting, production photos, production schedule, press clippings, etc. portfolio, a combination of the two. What we're looking for is an interesting, curated snapshot of the type of work you have done.
Figure out how best, this is your opportunity before we sit down with you to help us understand who you are, how you think about theater, how you relate to the theater, why you want to be in the theater, what you bring to the table. The deadline is January 3rd, 2024, and that's a hard deadline, correct?
Correct. Hard deadline. Don't wait until the last minute on January 3rd to submit your application, because something could go wrong. So
there's a question in the chat. what do you recommend? Whether to, hang on a second, whether to choose portfolio or analysis as a mid-career professional, is it possible to submit both? There's no reason you couldn't submit both, right, Stephen?
No, we're not going to stop you from
You're
submitting.
not gonna, but you don't have to. And I think you should pick the one that, it comes back to that issue of how best in this opportunity for us to know you as a theater maker, how best do you think you will share that with us? Because this is the part that we see on paper before that we see on paper that then helps determine who we're going to interview, right? So it's really your judgment. The first round of this is not a program where we are overly prescriptive.
So application deadline is January 3rd. The admissions office then prepares and processes those applications, turns them over to our admissions committee. Our admissions committee then takes several weeks to review the applications, at which point, usually by mid-February, we reach out to those who we will be interviewing. Interviews can be in person or, if necessary, on Zoom. And those usually take place end of February or early March, with the first round of decisions going out in mid-March.
Mid-March.
And there's other information there about where finding the application and the website. Of course, if you didn't find the website, then you also didn't find this this webinar. So I assume you already know about the website. I'll just speak for a moment, or we'll speak for a moment, just leaving this up here so that people can peruse the list of alumni accomplishments. This is a selection of alumni from the past 30 years.
30 years looking at this list.
Yeah.
And you'll see it's a wide-ranging group of positions, jobs, careers that people have made, ranging from commercial theater to service providers, to dance, to the not-for-profit sector. People are in New York, people are outside the city, people are around the world. It really is a kind of it is as deep and as comprehensive and diverse as the program is.
And I'm just going to call out that sort of middle slide with all the years on it. That is the incoming class of 2013, graduated in 2015. In 2013, sitting on the floor in the basement hallway of Teachers College, they did a Secret Santa gift exchange and mini holiday party at the end of the fall semester. And they have continued to do that. This class.
I didn't know that they have.
Yeah. And they've continued to do it every single year on Zoom as necessary. I went to their gathering last week, which had 7 of them in person and the rest on Zoom. And it's just testament to the fact that, these people who you meet at Columbia, your cohort, can become lifelong friends and supporters and support each other. And just a couple of nice smiling photos of students. I'll tell the story of the class of 2018.
This does not happen all the time.
Does not. Well, now you go to London. But back in 2018, the class of 2018, I think this was in 2017, Robert Freed, who's in the middle there, is a theater accountant who serves as the production accountant for many, many commercial Broadway productions, as well as many not-for-profit theater companies. And he is the accountant, among other things, for Hamilton. And he was telling the class that they would have to cancel a particular class session that semester
Reschedule a class because he was going to be in Chicago. Chicago? Right.
in Chicago for opening night of Hamilton. And the class said, well, just take us with you and we can have class in Chicago. And well, long story short, Robert got them all invited to the opening night performance and party in Chicago.
They got themselves to Chicago.
They got themselves to Chicago. They shared 2 hotel rooms and had a great time. You just never know what can happen.
That's right. They
that was before the
cleaned up pretty good too. That's the thing that impresses me the most. Anyway.
So thank you for joining us. We hope this was informative for those of you who are here today on December 7th. And for those of you who are joining at various points over the course of the next year, we hope you found this informative as well, and that you'll reach out to us if you have additional questions. What we'll do now is I'm going to stop the share, and if anybody who's here in the Zoom room right now would like to ask a question, either put your hand up, unmute yourself, put something in the chat. We're happy to take any additional questions.
All right, we have one in the chat right away. For the theatrical resume, should we include only our theater experiences or also related experiences?
I think, well, people tackle this in a couple of different ways. Sometimes it's just a full resume that includes everything. And then some people submit 2 resumes, a theater resume and a non-theater resume. And it really depends upon, if you're somebody who's worked in another industry and is now trying to make a move into theater, you may want to submit it all as one, or you may want to submit 2 separate ones. Either works. I would say generally when that happens, more people just wind up submitting 1 full resume.
Right, because for instance, we've had applicants whose background is as a performer, and so they have their actor resume. But if you have a different resume that you use for a day job, or a resume that indicates other things, you could do both, or you can integrate them. You're welcome. Other questions? Okay.
I had another question.
Yep.
Thank you for the session. It's been great to receive more information about the program, by the way. My question is, for the internship, especially over the summer, would it be possible to receive the university's help to do international internships, for example, in London or other cities and countries around the world?
Funny you asked that. I'm in the middle right now of helping one of first-year student research that. I think in terms of, is it possible if you don't, from a I think it's possible to do an internship. We don't necessarily have the capacity to undertake a visa process that would allow you to get paid necessarily, but I don't think, Stephen, there's anything that would preclude pursuing an opportunity to do something international.
No, nationally or internationally. Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to do an internship, a summer internship or a 3rd-year internship in New York City. And
you don't have to write your thesis in New York either. That's a question that comes up sometimes. Some students will relocate for the 3rd year. And I'll also say that obviously, the world has changed a lot in the last 4 years. We were joking before we came on with it quite about how now we know how to do Zoom, which we didn't do in 2019. Stephen said, I learned to do that, to do these webinars. So, and it's different for this, and also for the admissions process. If you can't get here for the interview, we do now, coming for the interview is great because we try and have other activities to help you be on campus and meet with current students. And so there's an opportunity to meet people, but if you can't get here, we can do it on Zoom. So we're pretty flexible on that front.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, is it Brissa? We
It's
can't hear you.
Brisa.
Brisa, okay.
Oh no. Okay.
Now I can
Can you
hear
hear me
you.
now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, thank you for hosting this webinar. It's been really informational. I am in the middle of drafting my autobiography and my statement of purpose, and I'm finding that they're very intersectional right now. And so I just curious if you had any suggestions on how to really differentiate them and what you're looking for.
The way we think about it a little bit is the autobiography is a little more past oriented and sort of what makes you who you are. And the statement of objectives is a little more forward looking into the future. What are your goals? What are your dreams? What are your ambitions? So that in
Yeah, that's
those two.
one is how have I gotten to where, how have I gotten to where I am today on December 7th? And where is it that I think I will want to be on December 7th, 10 years from now? Without answering the question that way. But one of them is looking a little bit behind you, and the other is, so why do I want to do this? Which is a little.
I certainly see what there's certainly things about that might drive, things that happen to you in your life that are also driving what your goals are. And, you think about it as part one and part two of an essay, really, because virtually everybody who works through the applications and is reading your application is going to read one followed by the other.
Yeah.
You can kind of think of it as a continuation of the essay.
I think really the distinction is there. It's a good question. I think the distinction is there to help you focus your thinking and thought process in writing about those two pieces of the whole that you are.
Great. Thank you so much. And
Welcome.
that's a harsh 500 words, no room for extra.
I don't, Nicolette, is there like an actual word count that gets done, or is it just
There's no particular word. We try to say to stay within that amount, but of course, if you need to finish a sentence,
it's not like the Schubert Foundation application for funding, where when you get to the 501st word, the computer goes crazy.
Right, exactly.
It's a guide. It's really a guide.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yes. Anna, did you have a question?
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
I can't see myself right now, so I hope you can see me, but it's okay. Oh,
Hi,
all right. I can see myself right now. Hi. Thank you so much for having this. I was so sad when I heard the concentration specific seminars weren't going to be recorded in our November information session. I was like, I'm so glad this is happening for people not in New York. Anyway, I'm also in the process of drafting my essays. I just wonder for students that come out right out of undergrads, what's your thoughts on them telling their story? Because I'm specifically thinking about not being able to be in the field as others, and how do you what's your thoughts on that, if that makes sense?
I think what you have to do is still share with us what you have done, why you're passionate about working in the theater, why the theater industry and the theater career is right for you, and what you hope to achieve, what your goals are. So I don't think it's terribly different. We still want to know what makes you who you are and what your goals are.
And I think the other thing that I would add, and this is me, I mean, Stephen and I always joke that a little of what happens on this webinar is you see how we teach and interact as faculty at Columbia. But I think if you're coming straight from school, it's why you think you should continue in school right away. as opposed to working for a year or two before you come to school, because we can only take 8 to 10 students, and we will want to take more than that. And so it's making sure that the people we take are at a point in their development where they need and want to be here, and that it's the right moment in time. And so, and this is not to discourage you if you're coming straight from school. Every year we take 2 or 3 people, I think, who are coming straight from school. It's just to say, why is it that you want to do this now as opposed to doing it in a couple of years? And it is, at least for me, to make it clear that you are a person who's decided you want to work in the theater, as opposed to something else.
Yeah, sure. Super helpful. Yeah, thank you both so much.
Mm-hmm.
I came into this program straight from undergrad. I'm an alum of the program. I came in straight from undergrad. I don't remember what I wrote in my essay though.
And you were the first JD MFA.
Was.
So
Kaylee?
there's another question.
Kaylee, did I say that right?
Yes, it's Kaylee.
Great. We emailed, right?
Yes, we did. Yes, no, thank you so much for bringing this up. It's been so lovely to hear y'all's voices and get to learn more about the program. So I'm really excited. So I know you all were talking about expanding your curriculum in regards to global policy. And I know we talked a little bit about the connections you all have with Francophone and French theater. And I was just wondering if you all plan on looking into any French theater policies and theater practices, or incorporating more Francophone theater in your all's curriculum.
I would say, honestly, not in the near term. We have, obviously we've made some significant inroads in terms of the UK. As I think I emailed you, we have several sessions on theater in Germany and intellectual property in Germany, because the way they deal with copyright law, especially, and theater production is very different from both US and UK. We have our course in international touring and international festivals that covers a lot of different countries and cultures. And I don't remember offhand if Ellen, who teaches it, toured with Peter Brook. So I know that she discusses elements of Brook and his center in France. But in terms of, whether it would be Quebec theater or theater in France, I don't think there's any specific, I don't anticipate adding a course, for example, in that area. In terms of cultural policy, I think there is now a new course in the arts administration program that deals with cultural policy. So that's something new, a new offering. We don't know that much about it.
And I would use, and we have an email, so I may not be speaking to some of the specifics of what you're interested in, but there are 2 other examples of ways that I would say the kind of tailoring and specificity can work. We have a first-year student this year from China who's particularly interested in reinvigorating cultural exchange. And we are talking about possible internships. We aren't pursuing these yet, so I'm not saying we have made this happen yet, but I think that there's she's really interested in maybe spending a summer in Washington, DC, working on some of that. We have a third year student who was very interested in undertaking an examination of how licensing does and doesn't work in Mexico, and how you could change licensing, attitude towards licensing. Stephen, correct me if I'm getting it wrong, in terms of compliance with licensing agreements with American licensing companies so as to open up the opportunities for theater makers in Mexico. And that was very personal and specific to her. And that's, I think, an example of a place where this is something about which I am writing my thesis for Columbia, allowed her to explore and talk to people and come up with a proposal that is quite compelling.
And I would say that, I don't know if your interest is in terms of theater in Canada or theater in France, but what I would say to, if somebody was coming into the program and was interested in working in theater, in the theater industry in France, I would say, well, what we do in terms of the German curriculum and looking at intellectual property, contract negotiation, producing in the EU, in Germany, that applies to France as well from a legal perspective. What we do in terms of European subsidized theater, when we look at the UK, there are elements of that apply. There are elements of American not-for-profit funding and management that would apply as well. There are pieces of our international festivals and touring course that would apply to that.
And I also think
why somebody couldn't then also do a thesis that focused on French theater and gave you a year to immerse yourself in that world.
And I would also say, to jump in and add to that, the student body in the other concentrations in the theater program is also quite international. And so the opportunity to make relationships with, for instance, in the Reimagining the Theater course this year, we actually had maybe five dramaturgs not from here, not from the States. And so we actually have, Christian and I looked at each other and went, well, we have to think about the curriculum. We're not changing the course because it is reimagining the institutional American theater, but we have expanded the conversation and actually some of the background to incorporate in a variety of folks from other countries where theater, the huge difference is the way theater is paid for is so different. In particular, when you look at European countries, the whole subsidy structure, but we're very mindful of that. And that factors into the conversation, and you can't help but have it factor in because of the international flavor of the overall theater program student body.
I think our goal in everything we teach is that the learning can be generalized, right? So that we're not just teaching you to do something that we've taught you to do. We're teaching you to take the things that you've learned and be able to apply them in a variety of different areas, in a variety of different art forms, entertainment, other fields. We're just as proud when someone takes the learning that they've gotten in the theater industry, works in theater for a while, and then finds some other passion and translates what they've learned in terms of theater management and leadership and the business side and brings it to some other area that they're passionate about.
Thank you so much.
Melissa,
You're welcome. Melissa.
Our last question.
Yeah. You're muted, my friend. You have to unmute.
Yes, thank you so much for doing this, and I'll try to be really quick because I know we've gone quite long. But I just wanted to wonder, for people who have been a few years outside of their undergrad, how important is your academic experience in the application process?
That relates to a question in the chat too, asking about the undergraduate GPA.
Yeah, and I can sort of tackle all of that together, which is that we are looking at your application to get a full, well-rounded picture of who you are. And someone who did really well in education, great. And someone who maybe didn't find themselves until after they graduated from college and has now really found their passion and what they love to do, and it's right, found that direction. That's great too. GPA is just one facet, and grades you've gotten in college, or just one piece of the whole picture of what makes you who you are, and it's in the past.
And we really do look at it, because you can look at someone, I mean, there's instances where you look at someone's GPA and, the GPA is not isn't overly competitive. And then you read the essay and you look at the courses, and that's because they spent the first 2 years pre-med because that's what someone wanted them to do. And they didn't want to do that. And at a certain, so many things inform your undergraduate experience. What are your opportunities? What privileges do you have? What did you think you had to study? We're looking at the whole person. We really are.
Were you going through a rocky time in your life? What
maybe, yeah, was it a horrible time in your life and you couldn't, I mean, and it's not that you have to spill your whole soul, but we've seen a lot of essays that have talked about, for a variety of reasons, my sophomore year in college, it was really difficult for me. Coming out of that, I realized X, Y, and Z. That's all we need to know.
And what I would say as far as the chat, what is the average undergrad GPA of admitted students or accepted students? I have no idea.
No idea.
Never calculated it because it doesn't matter to us.
Right, it really doesn't.
And how
we
is
had an awful lot of students who started studying one thing in college and realized they wanted to be in the theater.
Yeah, and how is it weighted? We don't weight anything really, right? We have the advantage of being able to look at, this is not like an undergrad program or a law school program where there might be thousands of applicants. And so what we are able to do, and what our admissions committee is able to do, is really look carefully at each individual who is applying and who we think you are on the basis of the application, and then take it a step further and invite you to interview and learn more about you. And who is this well-rounded person, right? Who is all different aspects of this particular person, and what do they want to do in the theater? What do they want to do with their lives? And what are they bringing to the program?
It's probably as good a place as any to end.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
If someone who's watching has questions, Stephen, who do they reach out to?
My information is on the Columbia website, so you can just search for me, Columbia. My email address is, you can either write to me at stephen.chailkelson@columbia.edu or sec11@columbia.edu.
And I'm BB12. B like Victoria, B like Bailey 12 at columbia.edu. So we're there.
These were great questions. Thanks everybody for joining us, for sticking with us.
Thank you so much.
Long session. And we look for those of you who are applying either this year or next year or at some point in the future, we look forward to reading your applications and to hopefully meeting you in the future.